I'm going to challenge you about something. I'm going to ask you a question. Do you recall a conversation that you may have had last week? How about last month? Let's go back a little bit further. How about last year? Is this something that you could have recalled maybe from 5 years ago? Or maybe 10 years ago? Well, the amazing thing about it is, chances are you may not remember every single detail of that conversation. But I guarantee you, if it was a significant conversation, you will remember how you felt. Why am I bringing this up? Why am I asking you this question? Because in caregiving, the person that you're caring for, your loved one, is going to remember how they feel. They're challenged already with the issues of remembering and remembering details. Maybe they have a short-term memory issue. Maybe they have great long-term memory. Maybe they just don't remember at all. And everything's a challenge. But let me tell you, if there's one thing that doesn't go away, it's the way you feel. And that's going to be the premise of this video. How you feel with your conversations and your interactions with your loved one on Chatting It Up with CJ. Well, hello and welcome. I'm so glad you decided to join me here at Chatting It Up with CJ. That's me. I have been thinking about this. I've been part of Dementia Care Blazers, and one of the things that I first learned about, or was taught, or was made aware of as a caregiver, was that the manner in which you speak to your loved one, or handle your loved one, or communicate with your loved one, however it is, because dementia has different facets to it. There's different ways to handle your loved ones, and it doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't even matter what you do, because that's not what the focus will be on. Your loved one is going to remember how they felt. Yeah, I never thought about it either. And maybe you have. Kudos to you. But I didn't think about it because gotta tell, this thing is getting in the way. What I'm trying to say is, I never really thought about it because I never really accepted that my mom, who was in my opinion, mild cognitive impairment, however, she was deemed that way by her PCP, and she never got tested. Okay, let's get that straight. But because I personally wasn't accepting that my mom was changing, and I had a hard time grasping onto the idea that she was changing. She didn't want to change. She used to tell me, when she would repeat things over and over again, I go, Mom, you've told me this already 5 times. And she goes, and she could feel my frustration. She could sense my lack of patience. And she goes, I'm sorry. You know, I just don't remember things the way they are. I don't know what's wrong with me. I feel cuckoo sometimes. I feel my mind is haywire, and I'm so sorry. She knew something was wrong, but she didn't know what was wrong. And I was thinking, this is incredible. There's no way that my mom is having Alzheimer's, or I didn't know anything about dementia. All I knew was Alzheimer's. And I thought, you remember me. You're not forgetting things. You're just repeating things. Unfortunately, we had moments where she wouldn't remember something 15 minutes after it happened, sometimes 10 minutes after it happened. It wasn't constant. And so a lot of the times, if I felt tensed up or anxious or frustrated. She would feel it. And she would remember how I felt. And now that she's gone, she passed away in June of 2024. I reflect on those times of, God, if I could do it over again, I would have dealt with it so differently. But the truth of the matter is I didn't. That time, I can't get it back. And I'm doing these videos to help you. Because if you're in a caregiver mode and you're trying to get a grip on things, I'm trying to save you the headache and the heartache, maybe even guilt of what it's like. Because I have moments of guilt. I have moments of regret, but it isn't killing me. It's just I'm giving myself grace. It's already hard enough to lose my mom. It's hard enough to lose anybody for that matter. It doesn't matter if it's dementia or not. It's hard when they leave your life and you don't get to do a do-over. So I'm helping you. And that's the reason for this video. You see, in the morning, my mom relatively was very pleasant, very optimistic, very relaxed. Yet when I walked into her room in the morning, I was thinking already as I'm walking down the hallway, oh my gosh, what's it going to be when I open up that door? Do I have to clean up a lot of stuff? Did she get out of bed? Because there was times when she was mobile, and then at the very end, she was bedridden. But I would find things, incontinent issues. Sometimes I would find her without her briefs, her Depends. Sometimes I'd find feces everywhere. I mean, I can't even begin to tell you what I would encounter. The problem is my mom had no idea that this was happening or what she was doing. But when I walked through that door, she knew by my face, by my countenance, by my words, by my attitude. And a lot of times I was frustrated because of the things that I encountered. My mom probably wouldn't have remembered anything that I said or did, but she remembered how I made her feel. And that's the subject. That's the question. I'm sure everybody has encountered this. I remember things when I was 6 years old. Why do I remember 6 years old? Because there was a significant thing that had happened. I don't remember the exact words in the conversation, but I sure remember how I felt. I even remember something back when I was 3 years old. That was a long time ago. But I do. I remember. I remember how I felt. Don't remember what my parents were saying. I was standing up. It's before seatbelts. It wasn't enforced, but I was standing in the back of our Chevy Bel Air, holding on to the back seat. My parents were in the front. And I remembered, and I only know this because of my mom and dad's conversations with me, that there was a very, very, very bad accident. And I was holding on to the back of the seat, and I was looking around. I may have been 3 or 4. But I remember thinking, oh, what's happening? And I remember being stunned by everything, and cars driving slowly. And my mom and dad have told me over and over again, yeah, you were about 3 or 4 years old, and you were stunned, you were speechless, you were just, and I guess I was a kid that talked a lot. Go figure. Look what I'm doing today. But I'm saying I remember how I felt. There's things that happen in your life that you can think back on. You can't remember the words, I'm sure. Maybe if it was when you're older, you do recall the words. But it leaves an impression on you. And most of the time, it's the feeling that you're left with. Sometimes it's a great thing that happens. You may not remember the exact words, but you remember how you felt if it's a good thing. You remember what it felt like if it was a bad thing. We internalize those emotions. We internalize those feelings. Our loved ones that are struggling with dementia or Alzheimer's, or they know. They may not be able to express it, but they know the feeling that you present to them. That's what I'm hoping to impart to you. Be careful in what you do. Be careful what you say. Be careful how you behave. Their memory is challenged, but it doesn't take much to remember a feeling. You know, I talked about it in one of my videos, my earlier videos about music. Music never departs them. It's a part of their brain that stays intact and is always sharp. I remember saying that my mom wouldn't remember every lyric, every song, every melody. It was amazing to watch. She couldn't remember what she just ate, or if she had breakfast and I'd be taking her bowl away for breakfast and she goes, "What's for breakfast?" I go, "I just gave it to you." She goes, "No, I didn't have breakfast." I'm like, oh my God, you know, it's a trip to crazy town. But you talk about music, they totally remember. And it brings back great memories. If there's certain songs, we do it. You ever listen to a song that brings you straight back to a time in your life? There's certain songs that I listen to on the radio, and I'm like, wow, it transports me back into time. It transports me back to a good time. It transports me back to good family times, happy times, sometimes even sad times. There's certain songs that I listen to now, and it's like, I don't want to remember that part. The mind is a very precise and specific thing. When you have dementia, parts of that brain start to disappear. It starts to die off. That's the terrible thing about dementia, is your brain is dying. Not everybody has the same type of dementia because certain parts of their brain are disappearing or dying off. That's why everybody acts differently when it comes to this disease. And then it'll never get better because your brain doesn't regenerate, like your liver, maybe parts of your lung. They'll grow back. But your brain doesn't. And as a caregiver, had I known this, because I was thrown into it, right? And I'm kind of flying by the seat of my pants to try to help my mom. But if you think of it in a way that what I do is going to impact their memory in regards to how they feel, then maybe I could have done a better job with my mom and said, "Hey, Mom, let's do this," or "Let's do that." Bearing in mind that she's going to remember how she feels. And it wasn't until the very end, probably the last, 8 to 6 months of her life, that it finally hit me. I need to walk in with a different attitude. If I want to have a different relationship with my mom, I'm the one that has to do it. I have to change. I had to examine myself, not my mom. I knew what was happening after a while. I could grasp on that something was wrong. And here I was trying to make her come into my world and bring her back to the world that she was familiar with. But bottom line is, she wasn't coming back. I had to change to be in her world. That's the difference. I had to be it. I don't want you to make that same mistake. Think about how you may be making that person feel. I found out that kindness goes a long way. And, let me be fair to myself. My mom and I didn't get along most of my life. So there was that entanglement that I had to deal with, and I had to detangle that and get over myself. Because if there was anything to be salvaged with my mom, it was going to be right then and there. I didn't have the ability to hash out things from the past. Once it got through my thick head that I couldn't do that anymore, I knew that I had here and now. And what I did with here and now was going to determine how that day was going to go, how that week was going to go, how the future was going to be. Lo and behold, it worked. Go figure, right? I'm just trying to put this out there because I want you to know how you make your loved one feel. And it doesn't have to pertain to caregiving with dementia. Let's think about it. Let's think about it in a way of how you relate to other people. How are you making them feel? I tend to, as a believer in Christ, think about the fruits of the Spirit. I strive my best to be a type of believer that will be judged by their fruit, the fruits of the Spirit. Peace, love, joy, gentleness, kindness, self-control. I'm sure I'm missing some. There's like 9 of them. Maybe I still got to work on those. Look, that's the point I'm getting at. It's how you treat others. And a friend of mine, a really good friend of mine, said niceness goes a long way. Well, so does kindness. And in caregiving, it's probably one of the necessities. Yeah, it's not easy. Yes, it's not hard to be an ogre, to be a bad person, to have a bad mood. That's the easy part. It's easy to think of the negative things. But when you start focusing on the good things, it turns around. It does get better. I'm here to tell you that because I've been through it. And I hope it helps you in the long run. And with that, I'm always going to tell you to remain to be blessed. I hope that the Lord blesses you well and that you always take good care of yourself. And I will see you at the next video. Hey, thanks for watching. And please remember to hit the subscribe button. We are trying to grow our channel and reach 1,000 subscribers. Now, for every new subscriber, these 2 nutheads right here, they're going to get a treat, so we will all be happy. Thanks for watching.